It was a sunny November day in 1963, and the world seemed to pause as a presidential motorcade rolled through Dealey Plaza. The air was thick with the hum of a crowd, and the tension was almost tangible. The president, a man of great stature and vision, was in the midst of his journey when an unthinkable event shattered the calm. A single moment of gunfire changed history forever. The question that has haunted historians, journalists, and citizens for decades is not just who fired the shot, but why it happened, and how a single bullet could unravel the fabric of a nation. This is not just a story about a president. It's a story about power, conspiracy, truth, and the weight of history on the shoulders of those who seek to understand it. Today, we begin to unravel the mystery, not with answers, but with questions that have shaped an entire generation of inquiry. The cold open is over, but the story is only just beginning. So what exactly are we talking about? It's not just about a single bullet or a single shot. It's about a moment that fractured history, a moment that left behind more questions than answers. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy was a pivotal event, not just for the United States, but for the world. It marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new, uncertain chapter. The official account suggests Lee Harvey Oswald fired the fatal shot from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. But the details, where, how, and why, have never been fully settled. What we do know is that the moment changed everything. The nation was thrown into chaos, and the world was left to grapple with the implications of a leader's sudden death. The question of who shot JFK is not just about a person. It's about the power of a single moment to reshape the course of history. The assassination of JFK is more than a historical event. It's a mirror reflecting the fragility of power and the human cost of political ambition. Every time we revisit this moment, we're forced to confront the reality that history is written by those who control the narrative, not always by truth. To ignore this question is to ignore the systems of control that have shaped our understanding of the past and our present. The truth behind JFK's death is not just about who pulled the trigger. It's about who decides what we remember. You should care because the questions we ask about the past shape the world we live in today. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy was a moment that fractured the nation. It happened on November 22, 1963, in Dealey Plaza, Dallas, Texas, in the middle of a brisk autumn day. The country was in the midst of a political and social transformation, and the event would leave an indelible mark. Kennedy was riding in a presidential limousine, flanked by Secret Service agents. The motorcade passed through the plaza, and as it approached the grassy knoll, the unthinkable happened. A single shot rang out and the president was struck down in an instant. The official narrative, as determined by the Warren Commission, concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Yet, the evidence presented was incomplete and controversial, raising questions that have lingered for decades. Over the years, numerous conspiracy theories have emerged, fueled by unanswered questions and conflicting testimonies. Some suggest multiple shooters, while others point to foreign involvement or internal government sabotage. The truth remains elusive. Today, the assassination of JFK is not just a historical event. It's a symbol of a nation in transition, a moment that exposed the fragility of power and the enduring power of doubt. The search for truth continues, even in the absence of definitive answers. So here's the thing. JFK was shot by someone, that's the simple truth. We don't know exactly who, but we know it happened. It's like a puzzle with missing pieces. People have been trying to figure it out for decades. Some say it was one person, others think more. The facts are there, but the answers aren't so clear. The key is to look at what happened, not just who did it. Every detail matters. Even the silence between the shots could tell us something. There are many theories, but the truth is still hidden. We need to keep asking questions, even if it's hard to face the answers. It's not just about the past. It's about how we handle the unknown. Sometimes the most important questions are the ones we're not ready to answer. The day begins with a carefully orchestrated plan. Every detail mapped out to ensure the president's movements are predictable and controlled. The limousine, a specially modified Lincoln, carries a man in a tailored suit, his face obscured by the dark glass of the back window. The timing is precise, the location chosen for its remote yet visible position, allowing for a clear shot without being seen. The rifle is loaded, the safety off, the trigger pulled with a single, decisive motion that will change history forever. The world holds its breath as the motorcade moves forward, unaware of the impending moment that will shake the nation. The rifle is a modified Mannlicher Carcano, its trigger mechanism designed for precision and control. It's a weapon of its time, built for military use, yet now it stands as a symbol of a moment that changed history. The bolt-action design requires the shooter to manually load each round, a process that demands both skill and calm under pressure. Every movement must be precise, every action deliberate. The rifling inside the barrel ensures the bullet spins as it travels, increasing accuracy and stability. This is the science behind the shot, a combination of physics, engineering, and human intent. The bullet leaves the barrel at an incredible speed, measured in thousands of feet per second, a force that can be felt in the aftermath of history's most controversial moment. The mechanism of the rifle, though simple in design, becomes a powerful instrument in the hands of a single individual. A weapon that, once fired, can never be unfired. The third step in understanding the assassination is recognizing the twist. The Zapruder film does not capture the full sequence of events. It is missing the first few frames, which are crucial to the timeline of the shooting. This omission has led to decades of debate. The missing frames are not just a gap in the footage. They represent a void in the evidence that could change our understanding of the entire event. Without the full footage, the sequence of events becomes ambiguous. Was the first shot fired from the 6th floor, or did something else happen before the camera caught the first bullet? This missing footage has fueled conspiracy theories and endless speculation. But it also highlights the fragility of the evidence and the weight of the unknown in the case. The science of ballistics has long been a silent witness to history, offering cold, precise facts that refuse to be ignored. Every bullet, every fragment, is a piece of a puzzle that resists easy resolution. Forensic analysis of the wounds, the angles, the trajectories, all of it is governed by physics, not politics. The science doesn't care about the story, only about the truth. Even the most advanced technologies can't erase the fact that some questions remain unanswered. The science is clear, but the answers are elusive, buried beneath layers of uncertainty. In the end, the science doesn't provide comfort. It exposes the fragility of truth and the weight of what we choose to believe or not believe about the past. Imagine a single bullet, fired from a distance, passing through a window, hitting a target, and then vanishing into the air. It's simple, yet the question of where it came from remains unanswered. The bullet's path is clear, but its origin is obscured by layers of glass, walls, and the weight of time. Just like the question of who fired the shot. We know the bullet hit, we know the target, but the source remains a mystery. Much like the man in the window whose face is lost in shadow. This is not a metaphor. It's a model of how the evidence was treated, simplified, yet strangely accurate, in its failure to answer the most pressing question. The analogy is dumb, but it works. It captures the essence of the case, a single shot, a single question, and a world of unanswered possibilities. The moment the president is struck, the footage becomes a silent scream. The screen goes black, then a flash, then a blur, a single frame that captures the final seconds of his life. In the aftermath, the audio from the recordings becomes a haunting echo. The sound of the rifle shot is muffled, distorted, and barely audible. A sound that could be anything, yet feels like a definitive end. The Zapruder film, though fragmented, holds the only visual record of the president's final moments. Every frame is a piece of evidence, yet it is also a symbol of the gaps in our understanding. The film's grainy quality and the way it captures motion in slow motion make it both a witness and a mystery. It is the only physical evidence of the moment he was killed, yet it leaves more questions than answers. This footage, though seemingly simple, is the most crucial piece of the puzzle. It is the only visual record, yet it is also the most controversial, a silent witness to a tragedy that remains unsolved. The first myth we'll bust is the idea that JFK was shot by a lone gunman. That narrative has been repeated for decades, but it's built on a foundation of incomplete information and selective memory. The Zapruder film, the only clear video of the shooting, shows a single bullet striking JFK's back. But the lack of a clear shot source has led to decades of speculation. The absence of a clear shooter in the footage has fueled conspiracy theories, yet the official report concluded that Oswald acted alone. But the evidence remains incomplete, and that's where the myths begin. To call it a lone gunman is to ignore the full scope of the event. The chaos, the confusion, and the layers of information that were lost or suppressed. The myth of a lone gunman isn't just about the bullet that struck JFK. It's about the power of a narrative that has shaped public memory for over half a century. The second myth we must bust is the idea that JFK was shot by a lone gunman. This belief has been used to deflect from the deeper, more complex truths about the assassination, but the evidence doesn't support the idea of a single shooter. There are multiple bullet trajectories, conflicting witness accounts, and an absence of clear footage that aligns with this theory. What we see is a pattern of inconsistencies that suggest a coordinated effort rather than a random act of violence. The chaos of the day points to more than one person being involved. To accept the lone gunman theory is to ignore the overwhelming evidence that the assassination was part of a larger, more sinister plan. This myth, like others, has been carefully constructed to obscure the truth. But the facts don't lie, they point to a deeper, darker reality. Everyday life is built on systems of trust, yet those systems are often built on silence and complicity. The same structures that allowed the truth to be buried in 1963 still operate today, shaping what we see and what we are allowed to know. The media, the government, the institutions we rely on, they all have gatekeepers. And those gatekeepers are often the same people who decided to let the truth about JFK be locked away for decades. The deeper you look, the more you realize that the truth about JFK is not just a historical mystery, it's a mirror. It reflects how we handle power, how we protect the powerful, and how we allow the past to shape the present. We are all complicit in this silence, not because we meant to be, but because we've been conditioned to look away, to accept what we are told, and to forget what we're not allowed to know. But the truth about JFK is not just about the past. It's about the present. It's about the systems that still operate in the shadows, shaping our world without us ever realizing it. In 1992, a federal jury in Dallas found Lee Harvey Oswald not guilty of assassinating President John F. Kennedy. The verdict was a stark reminder of how the truth can be obscured by time, politics, and the weight of public memory. The trial was a legal attempt to re-examine the facts, yet it revealed the limitations of the evidence and the enduring myths that had taken root in the public consciousness. The trial became a symbol of how history can be reinterpreted, even when the facts remain unchanged. It showed how the search for truth can be as much about perception as it is about evidence. The outcome was not a resolution, but a reflection of how the public and the legal system grapple with the past, often without a clear answer. The Zapruder film, grainy and trembling, captures every frame of the assassination in agonizing detail. It's not just a record, it's a haunting time capsule of a nation's moment of fracture. The film's speed, slowed to a crawl, reveals a reality that defies logic. A single bullet, or two or more, no one can say for sure. But the images speak louder than words. The film's original footage was shot at 180 frames per second, but the playback speed was later altered. The manipulation of time itself becomes a symbol of the nation's fractured truth. Even today, the Zapruder film is studied, debated, and reanalyzed. It is not just a record of an event, it is a mirror of a nation's unresolved grief and questions. The film's grain, the trembling, the distortion, it all adds up to something greater than a simple recording. It is the last, lingering voice of a president, a nation, and a moment that will never be fully understood. The moment the first shot rings out, the world freezes. A single, sharp sound pierces the air, and the president's head tilts at an unnatural angle, as if the weight of the world has suddenly shifted. The second shot comes moments later, and the president collapses to the ground, his body hitting the pavement with a heavy thud, as if the earth itself resists his fall. The Secret Service agent behind the president lunges forward, trying to pull him to safety, but the damage is done. The man who symbolized hope has just been struck down. As the sirens wail and the chaos reaches its peak, the truth is buried beneath the noise. A president is dead, and the nation is left to grapple with the unthinkable. The official narrative has been shaped by years of scrutiny, but the public has never been given full access to the evidence. The government has long maintained that the case is closed, yet the absence of transparency has only deepened the public's mistrust. The public is left to piece together a story built on classified documents, conflicting testimonies, and a lack of full disclosure. This creates an atmosphere of suspicion, where every gap in the official record feels like an invitation to doubt. The weight of secrecy has fallen not just on the government, but on the families, the witnesses, and the public who have never been allowed to see the full truth. This silence has created a legacy of unanswered questions. Without full transparency, the official narrative becomes a story told by those who are not allowed to question it. And in the absence of openness, the possibility of error, omission, or manipulation grows ever larger. The public is left to wonder, what if the story we've been told isn't the whole story? And what if the lack of transparency is not an accident, but a choice made to protect something we've never been allowed to see? The first step in understanding what happened on November 22, 1963, was to look at the physical evidence. Bullet holes, spent cartridges, and the shattered windshield all pointed to a violent, sudden attack. Forensic experts examined the damage to the car, the trajectory of the bullets, and the positions of the bodies. Every detail became a piece of a larger, more complex puzzle. The medical reports, the photographs, and the testimony of witnesses all began to form a narrative. But the deeper they dug, the more questions emerged. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that the case was more than just a crime scene. It was a political, historical, and emotional event that changed the course of history. The search for truth wasn't just about who pulled the trigger. It was about how the world responded to that moment and how it changed forever. There's a theory that JFK was shot by someone who was already dead. A man named Lee Harvey Oswald, the accused assassin, was killed by Jack Ruby shortly after being arrested. But what if the person who pulled the trigger wasn't even alive at the time? Some researchers suggest that Oswald may have been acting on behalf of a dead man, a man who had already been executed for another crime. The idea is that the real killer was a ghost, so to speak, with no body to point to. It's a bizarre concept, that the killer was a corpse, and the murder was an act of vengeance from beyond the grave. But if the body was already gone, how could it be linked to the crime? The theory is more of a philosophical puzzle than a concrete case. It tries to explain the absence of a physical witness, but it raises more questions than it answers. Who is the real killer? And what does it mean to be dead and still responsible for a crime? What if the truth was never meant to be found? What if the whole thing was a carefully orchestrated performance, designed to mislead, confuse, and obscure the real story? This isn't just about conspiracy, it's about control. The narrative that emerged was not neutral. It was shaped to serve a purpose, to settle a debate that was never truly open. We have to ask, was this a mistake or was it a masterstroke? Was the truth ever there to be found, or was it buried by design, under layers of misinformation and half-truths? The what-if question isn't just about the past, it's a mirror held up to the present. It forces us to confront the idea that power has always sought to control the narrative, not just in this case, but in many others. History is not written by the victors. It's written by those who have the will and the means to rewrite it. And sometimes, the best way to protect the real story is to ensure no one ever finds it. This case is not just about a single act of violence, but about a system that failed to protect, to explain, and to act. Compare it to the fall of a great city. Sudden, chaotic, and leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions that echo through time. Like a war that ended without a peace treaty, the events of November 22, 1963, left a wound that has never fully healed. The parallels are not just in the scale, but in the way history is shaped by those who control the narrative. This is not a story of one bullet, but of many that were never fired and many that were never investigated. In the end, the question is not who shot JFK, but who decided the story would never be fully told. Even today, decades later, experts still debate the facts. The evidence is incomplete, the witnesses are contradictory, and the silence of the government only deepens the mystery. Some argue the case is closed, that the evidence supports a single gunman. Others insist the lack of a clear bullet path and the absence of a known weapon make the official story suspicious. Experts from all sides continue to analyze every detail, every angle, every inconsistency. The search for truth has become a battleground of competing narratives. The tragedy of JFK's assassination is that it remains unresolved. The absence of a definitive answer has turned a historical event into a symbol of deeper, unresolved questions about power, secrecy, and the limits of knowledge. The key to understanding the Zapruder film lies in its frame rate. At 180 frames per second, it captures movement with a level of detail that seems almost magical. Yet it's precisely this detail that raises more questions than it answers. Each frame is a moment frozen in time, yet the speed at which they play creates a blur that obscures crucial details. This is both a tool and a weapon, allowing us to see, but also to doubt what we see. The film's grain and distortion are not flaws. They are the fingerprints of the technology used to record it. They are a reminder that even the most advanced tools have limitations, and that the truth is often buried in the noise. This frame rate, while revolutionary for its time, also introduces a paradox. The more you see, the less you can be certain of what you saw. It's a paradox that has fueled decades of debate and speculation. In the end, the Zapruder film is not just a record of events. It is a mirror that reflects our obsession with truth, our fear of the unknown, and our struggle to reconcile what we see with what we know. Beginners often assume the case is simple, that there's a clear answer. But the truth is far more complex. The assassination was a carefully orchestrated event with layers of deception. They overlook the sheer number of people involved: policemen, soldiers, witnesses, and officials, each with their own version of what happened that day. They fail to realize that the official story was built on incomplete data, conflicting testimonies, and a lack of transparency from the government. They assume the only thing that matters is who fired the shots, but the real question is, who had the motive, the means, and the opportunity to manipulate the narrative? Beginners also ignore the silence of the witnesses and the deliberate suppression of key evidence. The truth isn't always what it seems. There is a single frame in the Zapruder film that has changed the course of history. A single frame that shows something impossible. In that frame, JFK's head appears to be perfectly still, as if frozen in midair. But then, in the next frame, his head is already gone. This discrepancy has led to an infinite number of theories. Some say it's a camera malfunction. Others say it's a deliberate act of deception. What we see is not what happened. The frame is a window into a truth that is obscured, fragmented, and contested. That frame is not just an image. It is a symbol of how history can be manipulated, how truth can be obscured, and how a single moment can define an entire era. The one number that puts it in perspective is 500 feet. That's how far the president was from the grassy knoll when he was shot. It's not just a distance, it's a point in space that changed history. The same spot where a single bullet, fired from a single rifle, ended the life of a leader and ignited a firestorm of conspiracy. That number, 500 feet, becomes a symbol of the unknown. A distance that separates a man in a car from a man standing on the edge of history. It's a number that has been debated, measured, and remeasured. But it's the one number that connects the physical act of the shooting to the psychological weight of its consequences. The distance is not just about physics, it's about perception. A moment that has been dissected, questioned, and never fully explained. 500 feet, that's where history changed. That's where the unknown began. In 1964, a photograph surfaced that would become one of the most infamous images in American history. It showed a man in a trench coat, standing in front of a diner in Dallas, his face obscured by a shadow. The man in the photo was never identified, and his identity was the subject of intense speculation. Some believed he was a witness, others a suspect, and many thought he might have been the shooter. The photograph was often compared to the Zapruder film, which had already sparked a frenzy of analysis and conspiracy theories. Both images became icons of a nation grappling with its own history. Despite its power, the image was never officially explained. It was left as a mystery, a visual clue that pointed to something deeper than the facts on the surface. The trench coat man became a ghost in the history of the assassination, a figure who never spoke, never moved, and who still lingers in the minds of those who search for the truth. The question almost nobody thinks to ask is, why did the Warren Commission conclude the assassination was a single bullet theory? It's a conclusion that seems to ignore the physical reality of the events that day. The Commission's report assumed a single bullet traveled from the front of JFK's neck to the back of his head, a path that defies basic physics and anatomy. This assumption ignores the possibility that the bullet could have entered from the front, passed through the neck, and exited the back of the head, a path that is physically impossible. The single bullet theory is not a scientific conclusion. It's a narrative choice, one that sidesteps the more complex reality of what might have happened. By not questioning this theory, we allow the narrative to settle into a comfortable, yet incomplete, explanation of one of the most significant events in American history. The technology of the 1960s was primitive by today's standards, but it was cutting edge for its time. Every piece of evidence was recorded with limited resolution, and without the precision we now take for granted. Modern forensic tools could analyze the Zapruder film frame by frame. Yet even today, the exact moment of the shots and the trajectory remain subject to interpretation and debate. The future of historical analysis lies in AI and machine learning, which can process vast amounts of data and uncover patterns that human eyes might miss. Yet no matter how advanced the technology becomes, the truth remains elusive. The facts are there, but the interpretation is always shaped by the lens through which we view them. We are left with the weight of history, the questions that remain unanswered, and the responsibility to seek truth with both rigor and humility. Even today, the precise moment the fatal shot was fired remains unclear. No one saw it, and the Zapruder film captures only a fraction of what happened. The exact position of the sniper, if there was one, has never been definitively determined. The lack of physical evidence only deepens the uncertainty. The timing of the shot, whether it was a single bullet or multiple, remains a subject of intense debate. No one can say for sure what happened in those few seconds. The absence of clear, definitive proof has allowed conspiracy theories to persist. The truth, if it ever comes to light, may still be buried beneath layers of uncertainty. The mystery lingers not just in the facts, but in the silence that follows, a silence that refuses to be explained. The Zapruder film is the only known continuous, full-motion footage of JFK's assassination. It's an 8mm home movie shot by Abraham Zapruder, a bystander who had no idea what he was recording. The film captures every frame of JFK's head movement, the moment of impact, and the subsequent fall. It's the most detailed visual record of the event, though it was never fully analysed in real time. In 1994, the Zapruder film was digitized and made publicly available. This allowed for frame-by-frame analysis, but also raised new questions about the nature of the assassination and the evidence it holds. The film's clarity and detail have made it both a crucial piece of evidence and a source of endless debate. It's a silent witness, capturing the tragedy in motion. The Zapruder film is more than a record of an event. It's a symbol of the unanswered questions that have shaped our understanding of history. Let me recap the key events of November 22, 1963. President Kennedy was in Dallas, Texas, in a motorcade, moving through Dealey Plaza. His limousine was struck by gunfire, and he was pronounced dead before reaching the hospital. The shots came from a second-floor window of the Texas School Book Depository. A single rifle was fired, and the trajectory of the bullets remains a subject of intense scrutiny and debate. Multiple witnesses saw the shots, but the exact number and origin of the bullets remain unclear. The Zapruder film captures the moment of impact, but it also leaves many unanswered questions. The official report concluded that a single assassin fired the shots, but the evidence has never fully satisfied the public or the experts. The lack of clear footage and physical evidence has fueled decades of speculation. The assassination changed the course of American history. It left a legacy of conspiracy, distrust, and a demand for transparency. The truth, as we know it, remains uncertain. The Zapruder film, shot at 850 frames per second, captures every detail of the assassination. Yet its grainy, silent footage remains the only direct visual record of that day. For decades, experts have studied this footage, trying to piece together the exact sequence of events. But the clarity of the images has always been a paradox, too detailed to ignore, yet too ambiguous to confirm. What's truly mind-blowing is that this film, which should have been a simple record of an event, has become a battleground for truth. With every frame scrutinized, debated, and reinterpreted. The film's power lies not in its ability to show who fired the shots, but in its refusal to be silenced. Its very existence is a testament to the chaos, the confusion, and the unanswered questions of that day. In the end, the Zapruder film is more than a record. It's a mystery, a relic of history that still haunts us, even as we try to move past it. The truth remains elusive, buried beneath decades of speculation and scrutiny. We've traced every clue, examined every angle, and still, the answer eludes us. History is a puzzle with missing pieces, and the JFK assassination is one of its most infamous voids. We can only hope that one day, the pieces will align. As we close this chapter, we leave with more questions than answers. A testament to the enduring mystery that continues to captivate us all. Thank you for watching, for thinking, and for never stopping to question. Until we meet again, stay curious. Remember, the past is not gone. It's just waiting to be understood. Before you go, if you enjoyed this, please give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And tell us in the comments what you'd like us to make next. We read every single one. Thank you so much for watching. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end.